Ladies, let me tell you something. Real men don't start missing you when you're always available. They start missing you when you pull back, when you stop chasing, when you start living your life instead of waiting on theirs. See, when a man knows that you've built your whole world around him, he gets comfortable. He starts to think she ain't going nowhere. But when you start focusing on yourself, your peace, your joy, your glow, that's when he feels the silence. That's when he realizes what he had. Men are wired to value what they can't easily have. When you stop explaining, stop begging, stop texting, first you shift the energy. You remind him that you're not an option, you're a privilege. A man starts missing you when he sees your absence echo louder than your presence ever did. When he sees you smiling without him, thriving without him, when he realizes that your happiness doesn't depend on him, that's when it hits. Because, ladies, the truth is, distance teaches appreciation and silence teaches respect. So don't waste your time proving your worth. Walk in it. The right man won't risk losing a woman who knows her value. Ladies, there's something about human nature that never changes. A man doesn't start missing you when you're always right there. He starts missing you when you pull your energy back, when your attention isn't on him all the time, when you stop making him the center of your universe. Men are hunters by nature. They love the chase. They love the feeling of earning something. And when you hand yourself over too easily, that thrill disappears. It's not that he doesn't care about you. It's just that people in general value what they have to work for. When something is always there, always available, it becomes ordinary. But the moment it's gone, the absence screams louder than the presence ever did. When you stop calling all the time, when you stop being the one who always checks in, something inside him begins to stir. He starts wondering what happened. He starts asking himself why the energy changed. That's when missing begins. Because he's used to your presence, your voice, your attention filling his days. And when it's not there, he feels it deeply. The space you leave becomes the space he can't stop thinking about. That's why you don't have to prove yourself to a man. You don't have to keep showing him how much you care. Your consistency has already done that. But when you remove your energy, that's when he sees the value of what he once took for granted. When you're constantly available, a man never has to imagine life without you. He doesn't get to experience the quiet that comes when you're not there. But when you take a step back, when you start focusing on your own life, on your own goals, on your own peace, suddenly he's left to sit with the reality that you were bringing something powerful into his world. He begins to realize that you were not just another woman. You were the energy that made his life lighter, more exciting, more complete. It's not your job to remind him of that. Your absence will. See, men don't always respond to words, they respond to energy. You can tell them you're done, you can tell them you're tired, but when your actions show it, when you stop being the one who gives and gives, that's when it hits him. Because it's not about punishing him or playing games, it's about remembering your worth. You have to know when to stop giving access to someone who hasn't earned it lately. You have to know that your energy, your attention, your time are valuable. When you finally pull back and start giving that energy to yourself, he'll start to remember the way you made him feel, the peace you brought into his life, and how empty it feels without that presence. It's funny how men always think you'll be there. They get so used to your kindness, your patience, your understanding, that they start to believe it's guaranteed. But when you're no longer picking up the phone, when you stop answering every text, when you stop showing up to fix things, that's when they start realizing what they lost. They'll scroll through old messages. They'll replay old memories. trying to feel that energy again, and suddenly the things they once ignored become the things they crave the most. That's how missing begins, slowly, quietly, when the woman they took for granted decides she's done trying to be seen. So don't ever be afraid to pull back. Don't ever be afraid to give your energy to yourself. Because when you stop being available to everyone, the right people will start valuing your presence more. The wrong ones will fade, but the right one will come back with a new level of respect and effort. Men miss what they can't easily have, and they remember the woman who walked away with grace, not anger. They remember the silence more than the words. So when you stop showing up everywhere for him, that's when he finally starts missing you, not because you disappeared, but because you finally reminded him that you were never his possession. You were a blessing. When you finally start focusing on yourself, something powerful begins to shift. It's not just about making a man miss you. It's about rediscovering your own strength, your peace, your glow. You see, when your energy has always been centered around someone else, you lose touch with the person you were before them. You start adjusting, shrinking, softening your light just to fit into their world. But the moment you turn that energy inward, when you decide to pour into yourself instead of waiting for someone to notice your worth, everything changes. You begin to see that your happiness isn't dependent on who stays or who leaves. It's built from within. And that kind of peace, that quiet confidence, that glow that doesn't need validation, that's exactly what men start to miss. When you start choosing yourself, it shows in everything you do. Your conversations sound different because they're no longer filled with anxiety or overthinking. Your presence feels lighter because you're not carrying the weight of someone else's uncertainty. You smile differently because now it's real, it's not forced or performed for approval. A man feels that shift instantly. He might not even understand it, but he'll sense it. The energy that once revolved around him now belongs to you. And that realization hits hard because for the first time, he's no longer in control of your emotions. You are. The truth is, people are drawn to energy that's complete, not desperate. When you stop trying to prove your worth, when you stop chasing after reassurance, you become magnetic. There's something incredibly attractive about a woman who knows she's enough without needing to be reminded. Men start to miss that kind of woman deeply because her energy is rare. It's grounded, it's peaceful, and it doesn't beg to be understood. When he sees that you're living your life, spending time with friends, chasing dreams, building something for yourself, that's when the regret begins. He realizes that while he was busy taking you for granted, you were busy growing into the version of yourself that doesn't wait around. Self-focus doesn't mean selfishness. It means you finally remembered your own needs. It means you've realized that loving someone shouldn't mean abandoning yourself. When you start protecting your peace, your time, and your energy, people have no choice but to treat you differently. And the ones who once expected your constant availability begin to feel the void you leave behind. That's how a man starts missing you, when he notices the absence of the woman who used to give him everything without asking for much in return. When you start waking up early to work on your goals. When you laugh again without checking if he's watching. When you look in the mirror and see a woman who's healing instead of waiting. That's when your power returns. You're no longer asking, why doesn't he text me? You're too busy building a life that fulfills you. And ironically, that's the exact moment he starts to think about you more than ever. Because men notice change. They may not say it, but they feel it. They feel it when your energy isn't chasing them anymore. They feel it when your silence starts speaking louder than your words ever did. You start to glow differently when peace becomes your priority. You carry yourself differently when you realize you don't need to be chosen to feel complete. That quiet confidence becomes your aura. And that's the kind of energy a man never forgets. He'll start wondering where you went, why your energy feels distant, why you're not so easily reachable anymore. And while he's replaying moments in his mind, trying to figure out where he lost your attention, you'll be too busy moving forward, becoming stronger, softer, and wiser. That's what happens when you choose yourself. You stop waiting for him to see your value and you start showing it through your peace. And when a woman reaches that point, that's when men start missing her more than they ever expected. A man begins to miss you more when he realizes that you are no longer waiting for him to define your happiness. For too long, women put their lives on hold, measuring their worth by the attention or affection of a man. But when you finally stop doing that, when you stop allowing your emotions to be controlled by someone else, something remarkable happens. You reclaim your power, you reclaim your peace. And it is in that space of self-possession that men begin to feel your absence in a way they never did before. They start to notice the void you leave, not because they never cared, but because they took your presence for granted for far too long. Men are creatures of habit. When your attention is constant, they assume it's endless, like a river that will never run dry. But the moment that river slows, when your focus shifts from them to your own life, it disrupts the rhythm they have grown accustomed to. Suddenly, they're faced with silence where there was once conversation, absence where there was once constant presence. And human nature being what it is, we long for what we cannot have. That longing is what makes a man start missing you more. It isn't about manipulation or games. It's about the natural effect of absence and self-respect. When you stop allowing yourself to be treated as an option, he begins to see you as the rare prize that you always were. It's not just about pulling away physically or emotionally. It's about showing up differently in your own life. It's about prioritizing your growth, your ambitions, and your inner joy. When a man watches you thrive without him, when he sees that your smile, your laughter, your confidence do not depend on his approval, it hits him differently. That realization stirs something deep inside, something he cannot easily ignore. He starts recalling the moments he took for granted, the times your patience, your support, and your love went unnoticed. And he begins to feel the emptiness that your absence now creates. Women often underestimate the power of silence. Words can be argued with, emotions can be dismissed, but a life lived fully without someone who expected to be at its center cannot be ignored. Men start missing you when they feel the weight of what's no longer there. That void challenges them to reflect on what they lost and why they allowed it to slip away. When they see that your focus has shifted to your goals, your friends, your personal growth, they realize that the energy they once took for granted was not only valuable, but irreplaceable. And that realization is uncomfortable, yet undeniable. A man also begins to miss you more when he sees you set boundaries. When you stop tolerating behavior that doesn't honor your worth. When you stop explaining yourself or justifying your feelings, you create a space that demands respect. That respect, once absent, cannot be ignored. Your consistency in self-respect forces him to confront his own behavior, to face the reality that losing you would not be a simple thing. The very act of choosing yourself sends a powerful message. You are not a convenience, you are a priority. And that is when longing starts to take root. Ultimately, men start missing you when they recognize that your love, attention, and energy are no longer unconditional. When they realize they have to earn it, they start valuing it in ways they never did before. Your absence becomes a mirror reflecting what they lost, your silence a reminder of your strength, And while you are busy building the life you deserve, they are left thinking about the warmth, the laughter, and the presence they allowed to slip away. That's when missing turns into longing, and longing turns into understanding. And that understanding, when it comes, is a recognition of your worth, a worth that was always there, but only noticed when it was no longer freely given. A man truly starts missing you when he realizes that your presence in his life isn't guaranteed anymore. Too often, women give endlessly, assuming that their love, attention, and patience will always be enough to keep a man invested. But the reality is, men often take for granted what is readily available. They stop noticing the little things, the way you laugh, the way you care, the way you make life feel lighter just by being there. When everything is constant, it becomes ordinary. But the moment you step back, when your focus turns inward and you stop bending over backward for someone who doesn't fully appreciate you, that's when he begins to feel the absence. It's not about punishment or playing games. It's about showing him and yourself that your energy is precious and not meant to be taken lightly. Men are wired to respond to challenge and desire. They miss what they cannot easily possess. When you are always available, when your attention is unconditional, the thrill fades. But when your energy becomes more guarded, when you stop chasing, he begins to notice. Every unanswered message, every moment of silence becomes a space for reflection. Suddenly he realizes the little things that mattered, the way your presence made his days brighter, the comfort your voice provided, the way your smile could turn a bad day around. That absence begins to echo in ways that words never could. Men miss not just the person, but the energy, the warmth, the consistency, and the care that they once had but no longer take seriously. Another reason men start missing you more is when they witness your growth. When you focus on yourself, your ambitions, and your happiness, it forces them to acknowledge that you are not dependent on their validation. Your life doesn't revolve around him anymore. It revolves around you. And that shift is powerful. It challenges him to see what he lost while he was preoccupied with his own world. When he sees you laughing without waiting for his approval, thriving without needing his input, and living fully without seeking his attention, it triggers a deep sense of longing. He remembers the value you brought into his life, the joy you shared, and the peace he overlooked. Boundaries play a crucial role in this dynamic. A man starts missing you when he notices that you no longer tolerate behaviors that undermine your worth. When you stop compromising your self-respect, stop justifying your feelings, and stop being available at his convenience, he begins to recognize the standards he once ignored. That absence of access is a wake-up call. He starts to understand that keeping you in his life requires effort, respect, and genuine intention. And that realization often comes with a mixture of regret and longing, because he now sees clearly what he allowed to slip through his fingers. Men also begin to miss you when they experience the quiet that comes with your absence. Silence has a unique way of creating awareness. When you stop responding to every call or message, when you stop showing up to fix things or make everything easy for him, he's left to sit with his thoughts. In that silence, he begins to replay moments he may have taken for granted. Remember times when your presence was a comfort, and understand how much he relied on your energy without fully appreciating it. That quiet reflection is a powerful teacher, one that words cannot convey as effectively as your absence does. Ultimately, men start missing you more when they see that your life is full without them. When they notice that you have reclaimed your energy, your confidence, and your joy, they feel the loss of what they can no longer take for granted. The combination of your self-focus, your boundaries, and your peace creates a magnetic effect that reminds them of your value. And that value, once invisible to them, becomes undeniable. They may not admit it immediately, but they feel it in the quiet moments, the memories, and the realization that losing you would mean losing something rare, something irreplaceable, something they can't get back without effort. It's in this way that absence, confidence, and self-respect make a man truly start to miss you. ChatGPT said, a man begins to miss you more when he notices that your life no longer revolves around him. For too long, women have been conditioned to measure their worth by a man's attention, affection, or approval. But when you finally stop waiting for him to validate your existence, something shifts in the dynamic. Suddenly, you are no longer chasing, no longer bending over backward to earn his love or attention, and the energy he once took for granted becomes a rarity. Men start missing you because they begin to realize that what was always available is now precious and limited. That absence, that space you create for yourself, forces him to reflect on your value in ways words never could. When you focus on yourself, it is powerful in ways a man cannot ignore. Your attention is no longer on waiting for his messages or hoping he notices your efforts. You invest your energy in personal growth, in your passions, in your peace. And that is magnetic. Men begin to miss you when they see that your joy, your confidence, and your happiness are not dependent on their presence. They notice the way you carry yourself with strength and grace, how you smile freely, how you laugh without seeking their approval. That energy reminds them of what they lost, and it awakens a longing they may not have felt before. Boundaries are essential in creating this sense of absence. A man starts missing you more when he realizes that you are no longer willing to tolerate disrespect, neglect, or behavior that undermines your self-worth. When you stop compromising your peace to accommodate his convenience, he begins to understand that keeping you requires effort and intention. You stop explaining yourself unnecessarily. You stop justifying your feelings, and you stop bending over backward to maintain his attention. That kind of self-respect creates space for reflection. Men begin to see that your energy is not a given, and they start to miss the consistency, love, and care that you offered so freely before. Men are also deeply affected by the quiet of your absence. When you stop being constantly available, when your presence is no longer guaranteed, the silence forces them to confront their own behavior. They start replaying moments when your patience, support, or affection went unnoticed. That quiet reflection creates longing. They feel the void that your absence has left in their daily lives. And that is when missing turns into awareness, awareness turns into regret, and regret turns into a desire to reconnect, but only if they are willing to meet the standards you now uphold. Another reason men begin to miss you more is the realization that your love is no longer effortless to obtain. When you shift your focus to yourself, it challenges the illusion that your energy and attention are unconditional. Men start to notice that they need to earn your time, respect, and affection. And when they see that you are thriving, building your life, and moving forward without them, it stirs a longing that cannot be ignored. Your independence, your confidence, and your self-possession make them realize that losing you was never meant to be easy, and that they must step up if they want to be part of your life. Ultimately, men miss you more when they see the value of what they can no longer take for granted. Your absence, combined with your focus on yourself, your boundaries, and your peace, creates a presence that lingers even when you are not there. They start thinking about the warmth, laughter, and light you brought into their lives, they notice the difference between a life with you and a life without you. And in that space, they realize that missing you is not just about longing for a person. It is about longing for the energy, the love, and the strength that you carried all along. It is in that realization that a man truly begins to understand your worth and begins to feel the absence of what he once took for granted. A man begins to miss you more when he realizes that your presence is no longer constant in his life. For too long, women have been conditioned to give endlessly, to put their needs and desires on hold in order to nurture someone else's comfort. But when you finally step back, when you stop pouring your energy into a man who doesn't fully appreciate it, something powerful happens. Your absence becomes noticeable in ways words never could explain. Men begin to feel the weight of what they lost because they finally realize that your love, attention, and presence were never ordinary. They were rare and irreplaceable. When you stop being immediately available, he is forced to confront the fact that you were never someone he could take for granted. Men are wired to notice scarcity. When a woman is always available, the energy and effort she gives can feel routine, something to be expected rather than cherished. But when you start protecting your time, your peace, and your attention, a man begins to recognize the value of what he once overlooked. Every text unanswered, every call returned later, every moment of quiet presence replaced by your focus on yourself becomes a reminder of what he's missing. That absence triggers reflection, making him replay memories, consider moments of neglect, and realize that he underestimated the depth of your care and the power of your presence. When you focus on yourself, you change the energy between you two completely. You invest in your personal growth, your happiness, and your passions. Your confidence grows. Your light shines brighter, and you radiate an independence that cannot be ignored. Men start missing you when they witness that your joy doesn't depend on them. When they see you thriving and building a life that is full without their validation, that kind of energy is magnetic. It reminds them that they had a woman who was complete on her own, someone whose absence creates a void that cannot easily be filled. That void is felt not just emotionally, but mentally, and it pushes him to realize what he took for granted. Boundaries are another reason men begin to miss you. When you stop tolerating behavior that undermines your worth, when you no longer justify your feelings or adjust your life to accommodate his convenience, you create space for him to reflect. He begins to see that keeping you in his life requires effort, respect, and consistency. He notices the moments he ignored your patience, your understanding, or your love, and he feels the loss of what was once freely given. Boundaries signal self-respect, and men are drawn to women who hold themselves with dignity. When those boundaries are no longer flexible, the absence becomes tangible and the longing begins. Men also miss you more when they experience the silence that your absence creates. Without your constant presence, they are left to sit with their thoughts. They replay conversations, relive moments of connection, and remember the warmth, care, and stability you brought into their life. That quiet space is powerful. It forces reflection in a way that words or confrontations cannot. In that reflection, they realize that your energy and attention were not infinite. They were gifts, and gifts that were once taken for granted feel profoundly missed when they are no longer available. Finally, men begin to miss you more when they see your life moving forward without them. Your growth, your confidence, and your independence are constant reminders of your worth. When they notice that your happiness, peace, and joy are not contingent on their presence, they start to understand the magnitude of what they lost. Your absence becomes a reflection of your strength, your value, and your self-possession. That realization creates longing, a deep and undeniable desire to reconnect with someone who no longer exists solely to fulfill their needs. They start to understand that missing you is not simply about wanting your presence. It's about missing the energy, the light, and the power you brought into their life, a presence that cannot be replaced or ignored.